this is just crazy. Like, what am I doing? I think our society has really diminished the dignity of motherhood. I hear this term sometimes like, oh, I laid down my calling to become a parent, or I put my dreams aside to take care of the kids. And what I've been realizing more and more is we are back with my public diary of first-time motherhood, sharing my unfiltered thoughts and reflections because I have so much that I've just been constantly thinking about when it comes to this massive transition that is becoming a mom for the first time. You see a lot of the glorified, glossy versions of motherhood, or maybe overall, overarching things that people share online, but there's just so much. So of course it's hard to capture and articulate and share. But today I wanted to talk about something that I've been continually thinking about and challenging myself in, because it's definitely something I'm still grappling through and navigating. And I'm sure so many other moms can relate if you're already a mom, or you're going to be a mom, or you want to be a mom someday. I think this is something that just would be good to know to expect, because I kind of knew about it to some degree, but now that I'm actually in it, I'm 14 weeks postpartum with my first baby, and it's definitely a lot more real. And that thing that I'm talking about is being okay with, and not just being okay with, but really embracing the dignity and the worth of being a mom when no one else sees all the things that you do. There's so much when it comes to taking care of a baby, and I'm sure moms with multiples, oh my gosh, even more true for those of you with multiples, but there's so much that people just cannot see on the outside, even your own spouse. When you are parenting, there's so much that is just you doing it, hoping that it's for the good of your child, like they're gonna benefit from it somehow. Either you're trying to teach them something, or just taking care of, like they're fussing and soothing them, or just so many different things. Plus, all the laundry and dishes and chores and cooking and cleaning and restocking supplies and personal admin and messaging and keeping up a social life. Like the list goes on. There's so many things that you do on a day-to-day basis when you're a parent. I've heard stories from stay-at-home moms whose spouses don't understand what they do all day, and then they come home from work and they're like, you had so much time today, how come you couldn't just do this one little thing? And it's like, you weren't home to see the chaos that was happening. Your kids aren't sleeping or aren't taking naps, or they got sick, or they were fussy or being difficult, or had a bad mood. There was a huge blowout accident or spillage, or whatever it is. There's just so many things in parenthood that I'm realizing is all about unpredictability, all about being okay with going with the flow. I just have been thinking a lot about, wow, so much of the diligence that you exude and that you embody as a parent doesn't get seen by anybody else except your child, or except even just yourself if it's not related to your child, directly interacting with them. And personally, I'm so grateful. This is a much longer testimony and story, but I felt very clearly called, and it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, because I, for most of my life, have been very work driven, achievement driven. I grew up in the Bay Area, in the Silicon Valley, where it's very much about career and professional success. Even in ministry, there's semblances of that culturally, of feeling like there's significance by being a ministry leader, directing teams and leading a bunch of people and doing amazing big things for God that can be displayed, and people can be like, wow, that's amazing, just praiseworthy, just recognition. About 2 years ago, God really put on my heart so clearly to step out of my ministry role. Previous to that, I was in tech. Previous to that, I graduated from one of the top universities. So it was just like my whole life had been, very impressive resume, listings. And then all of a sudden, 2 years ago, felt such an unfamiliar feeling to step out of my role without any backup plan. And I was like, this is just crazy. Like, what am I doing? I have nothing to show for. I have nothing to show, like, I'm off to do this amazing thing, and then, therefore justify my leap of faith stepping out. But it was one of the hardest things, and I can talk about it another time. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. A lot of people just did not understand fully and could not understand, and I'm sure had many judgments and misconceptions about what was going on, what I was going through. And I dealt with a lot of just insecurity about, what are people thinking about me, or is this okay if certain people don't seem to fully approve or understand. I was a chronic people pleaser growing up, so it was just very difficult for me in all sorts of levels, on top of not having a defined role role or title or job. So when people would start asking me, what are you up to now? Very well intentioned, it would trigger that insecurity of like, who am I without a impressive role or title or job to, get that reaction of like, wow, that's amazing. That's awesome. That's perfect. That's exactly what God made you to do. Like all these things that people say. That whole journey, basically, it was very hard, but it stripped my self-worth apart from what I did for my work, what I could demonstrate or prove. And I even grappled with that again in another way when I felt God call me to start a podcast with my husband. And that was a whole journey too, like posting on social media, putting out content. And anyone who has been a content creator or created content, you know how nerve-wracking it is to put yourself out there and not many people engage at first, especially. It also took me on a journey of grappling with people you thought were closest to you or were supportive of you are not showing the support that you thought you would get, and there was just so many things that I had to work through mentally, emotionally, to really get to a place where I was more okay than ever I had been with not being recognized by people and not doing things for people's approval, for people's accolades, for people's opinions, to really do it for God, because he saw that I was following what I believed he was putting in my heart and he was calling me to do. And I have no regrets at all. It really brought me on a journey of so much healing that I had to go through that I didn't even know I needed. It taught me so many things. It also produced awesome things that it wasn't even what I expected, really. Like, starting a podcast, I was like, okay, I don't even know where this is going. It'd be great to get like so many subscribers and listens, because that's how people define success in our world, is these metrics and these numbers, getting a bunch of comments of people approving of you. But yeah, through that process, it basically disciplined and trained my mind to no longer seek that as my metric of success, and instead to know that my metric of success is my obedience to God and doing the best that I know how to do despite what the outcome may look like, especially if it's not on my timeline. It really translates now into parenthood because it's the same thing. Like, I feel like there's so many things I do that's invisible, that's behind the scenes, that people will never see. It's hard to describe, it's hard to even convey. If I hadn't gone through that process, I think it'd be so much easier for me to feel so discontent about what I'm doing as a stay-at-home mom and a homemaker and a wife, and I'm just trying my best, because part of that would have been still ingrained with, what do I tell people when they ask me what I'm up to, or what's my title, what's my job. It also helps too, my husband and I now no longer live in the Bay Area, and we've noticed a significant difference in talking to people. It's no longer so career centric where work is like dominating every conversation. We get to talk about so many other things besides work, and work actually oftentimes doesn't even come up, it's just still blows my mind, because I just grew up in the Bay Area where work, it's so core to your identity. I think in motherhood, it's so important for people to remember what you're doing is sacred work. Like, what you are doing is the most important job. You're shaping another human being, and that's what I tell myself all the time. My interactions with my daughter is shaping her, is helping her to develop and grow into an adult someday who's going to also be impacting so many other people. And I think of how my mom also did the same for me, and I tell her more than ever now than before, because ever since becoming a mom, I'm like, Mom, thank you so much for all you do. But I remember even as a kid, very early on, recognizing, wow, my mom is so intentional with me. My friends would ask me, how did I become like this? Or this sounds like a humble brag, but like I literally would get people saying, you are so much more mature for your age, or how did you get this emotional maturity? Like things like that I felt undeserving of, but I was like, I didn't think this was unusual. And I would just always trace it back to, I think it's probably because my mom has raised me so intentionally. That always reminds me, I can't be a perfect mom. There's no such thing as a perfect mom. What I can do is just do the best that I can to raise my baby and my child, and trust that God is using me and he has my child in his hands, and that he loves her way, 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 way more than I ever could, and can take care of her much more than I ever could as well. This work, this assignment, this calling is so much more important than you realize. And you're shaping literally everything in their lives, and also the people that they will impact beyond even your own life. When you pass on, they're going to be passing on things that you did to their kids and then their kids. So it's a generational impact, and it has a much broader impact than you know. I hope that encourages other moms who might feel invisible, who might feel like people aren't seeing them, or, is this all worth it? And I'm just telling you, what I tell myself is yes, it is so worth it. And God sees you. That's the most important thing. God sees you. And just like David, I've been watching a series called House of David with my husband, and we love this series. It's just been reminding me, David was a shepherd just hidden in the hills, like so anonymous. Nobody thought anything of him. He wasn't like his brothers who could fight in battle, but God chose David to be king because he sees what man does not see. Man looks at the outward appearance and God looks at the heart. Not to mention Mary, the mother of Jesus. He was the son of God, but Mary was chosen, and she was so young. She was unassuming. She wasn't anyone significant or important in society's eyes, but God chose her to be the mother of Jesus. And there's not like a daily vlog in the Bible of like 10 things Mary did with Jesus to raise him as a child, or developmental activities with Jesus as a newborn, but it's just amazing. Like, you think of the mothers of these significant biblical characters and people in history, mothers are behind so many of those people, and they don't get the fame and the glory, but it's through how they parented and how they raised their children that their children go on to leave a legacy. And even if it's not their children, it's like the impact is so much bigger and has more implications than you know. Whatever it looks like, I just hope and pray that all your efforts, all your faithfulness, even when no one sees, no one looks, and no one can applaud you on the outside, on social media or metrics wise or whatever, like God sees that. The last thing I'll end with is, I think our society has really diminished the dignity of motherhood in terms of being a parent. I hear this term sometimes like, oh, I laid down my calling to become a parent, or I put my dreams aside to take care of the kids. And what I've been realizing more and more is this is the calling. Like, if God willed it for you to have children are a blessing, and this is part of your calling in this season. It is the narrative from our society that our calling or the grand pursuit is somewhere out there, outside of the home, apart from your kids, and you have to delay that and sacrifice that for the sake of your kids. But it's like, I feel like that's the wrong way to think about it, because kids are the calling. Kids are the dream. Not everybody may like being a parent. Maybe they don't enjoy it. I mean, it's definitely very difficult and hard and requires sacrifice for sure. But I just think of the Bible and how, biblically speaking, children are fruit. Children are the blessing. What an honor and privilege it is to shape these little humans who will become adults and go on to transform the world. There's so much more in that, but all that to say is just don't forget the significance of what you're doing. Follow along for more unfiltered motherhood thoughts, and I'll catch you guys later.